Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Patty and others, for the opportunity to present at this meeting. I've had the pleasure of meeting and interacting with many of you, but for the others, I thought I might start with a little biographical information. I am an attractive Indian lady, married to an Indian man with 2 children. To those of you who wonder what the relevance of this information is, and to those whose credulity seems a bit stretched, I can assure you that I have this on good authority, and in fact, in writing. These exact words were provided by a senior orthopedic surgeon in a reference to the AOA when I applied for a training job. However, this description is a half-truth. My husband has always told me that the evidence of me being attractive and the mother of 2 children is incontrovertible. However, having been Australian citizens for many years at the time, the description of either my husband or myself as Indians was technically incorrect, except possibly in a broad racial sense. In any case, this attractive Indian lady, married to an Indian man with 2 children, was not selected for the training program. In a professional career now spanning 3 decades, I've had the immense pleasure of working in orthopedics in some capacity or the other. It's not something that I'd swap for anything else, because the vocation of orthopedics has been one of the abiding passions of my life. It was a passion triggered by the reading of a book, 10 Fingers for God, the biography of Paul Brand, the British surgeon who worked in reconstructive surgery of the hand on leprosy patients in the south of India. In fact, one of my first medical pilgrimages when I was an intern was to the hospital in which Paul Brand had worked decades earlier. I was smitten by orthopedics, especially surgery of the hand, and continue to remain smitten to date. When I arrived in Australia nearly 22 years ago, I had successfully completed specialist training in orthopedics in India, which was followed by training in the UK, leading to an FRCS. And then this attractive Indian lady applied for a training position a few times without much luck. During one of these interviews, I had the fortune of running into a familiar face from across the Tasman Sea. En route Australia, we stopped by New Zealand, where I met with the then chairman of the Orthopaedic Association to check on my prospects in New Zealand. I was not quite prepared for his response. "Don't they need people like you in your country? We need our places for our boys coming from South Africa." And so it was to Australia that we repaired. However, luck had some things in store for me. Through an agreement between the Minister for Health in WA and the AMA, doctors were being credentialed and appointed to specialist position in non-teaching hospitals in Western Australia. Based on my Indian and British specialist qualifications, I applied to the Swan District Hospital and was successful. A week later, in mid-2000, the medical board listed me as a specialist. Since then, the medical board has renewed my registration every year, including through 2 major transitions. First, when the Medical Practitioners Act was introduced in Western Australia, and subsequently when the National Act leading to the formation of AHPRA was promulgated. Owing to some health issues, I had to take some considerable time out, and when I was ready to return to active practice, I did a fellowship in hand surgery and a stint in the hand unit in the plastic surgery department of Fremantle Hospital. Being satisfied with my clinical work and impressed by some research I was doing at the time, and since I was registered as a specialist, the hand unit was keen to employ me as a consultant. Everything was in place, including rostered clinical sessions. At this stage, the orthopedic surgeon I was doing the hand fellowship with, who happened to be a friend and business partner of the then president of the AOA of WA, learned of my impending appointment. in an area where he otherwise enjoyed a cozy oligopoly in Perth. He also became aware of the research I was doing on fracture healing, which was being extremely well received both locally and internationally. Now, I cannot say whether it was through happenstance or by design. Soon thereafter, the president of the AOA wrote to Fremantle Hospital asking that my appointment be put on hold. The public hospital obliged the AOA by stalling my appointment. He also simultaneously wrote to AHPRA, saying that the AOA had serious concerns about my clinical work. This was particularly interesting, as unlike the specialists at the hand unit in Fremantle Hospital who had seen me operate and consult, none of the members of the AOA had done so. And AHPRA too obliged the AOA by coming up with different reasons why my specialist registration should not be renewed. In all, they changed their mind 8 times about the reason for their refusal to renew my registration. 8 times. I then made a submission to the AHPRA board. And before that submission, the chairman of the board commented to my lawyer, "The AOA does not seem to like your orthopedic lady." During the hearing, the chairman of the board asked me if I had applied to the College of Orthopaedics, to which I had to respectfully say no, hastening to add that such an entity did not exist. Did you know that the first time the term kangaroo court was used was back in 1853? By the end, AHPRA claimed that it was through no fault of mine, but that they had made a mistake in 2000 because my registration contravened the policies of the time. When asked for the policies, they were not able to produce any. Soon the matter is to be heard at the Supreme Court. As Western Australia appears not to have any good lawyers, AHPRA is flying in a Queen's Counsel from Melbourne. Meanwhile, my clinical career has now been on hold for 3 years. But this story is not without a silver lining. My marginalization from mainstream, by which I mean lucrative orthopedics, has had some very positive impacts on me. When I speak to orthopedic surgeons about research, many say that if they were better remunerated for their clinical work, they would be able to create the time to engage in research. This is a complete fallacy. When we increase the remuneration for clinical work, we actually increase the opportunity cost of not doing clinical work, thereby making it less, not more likely, that they will be able to engage in any academic pursuit. For me, this paradox explains the sorry state of academic orthopedics in Australia. The lucre in orthopedics has sapped it of all academic aspirations. I had always been interested in research. The efforts of the AOA to stall my clinical career meant that opportunity cost did not impede my ability to indulge in my passion for research. And so I did. Along with my collaborator, we discovered a digital biomarker which can predict the time for fracture healing and also predict the risk of osteoporosis. After the initial work, we won a grant from Fremantle Hospital Medical Research Foundation, and that paved the way for us to win an ARC grant for $250,000 last year. After patenting the discovery, I presented the work at various international conferences and which was met with wholesome approval. I may also add, Nobel laureate Professor Barry Marshall described the work as one of the 4 most important pieces of medical research being done in Western Australia. Looking back at life from where I now stand, I see myself as a winner in the lottery of life. I got to play in the sandpit I most wanted to, and because of the challenges I faced there, I was nudged in the direction of science. I have indeed been very lucky in my professional career. But I also realized that my good fortune does not vindicate a system that is seriously flawed. Using my career as a case study, the following are what I think are the major problems besetting us. The first is AHPRA's failure to honor the mandate it was given. AHPRA was instituted principally to do 2 things: to ensure public safety, like we heard, by making sure that only suitably qualified practitioners are registered, and to investigate complaints when there are concerns about a practitioner. And what has AHPRA done with this mandate? For the first of its functions, it has made itself completely subservient to the royal colleges and private bodies like the AOA by allowing them to be the sole arbiters of deciding who and how many can practice as specialists. In the second of its functions, it has reduced itself to a willing handmaiden of the bodies like the royal colleges and the AOA. When these bodies wish to stymie an individual's career, AHPRA obliges them by enmeshing such individuals in investigations and legal proceedings that can go on for years. Effectively, AHPRA has become like the enforcers of the financial and cartel interests of the colleges in much the same fashion as the corrupt police departments look after the interests of the mafia. The second problem is what bodies like the AOA have done with the power and protection provided to them by AHPRA. They have used it to insulate themselves from the values and mores that mainstream Australian society cherishes, and instead prosecute orthopaedics in the fashion of a medieval guild. In the world of the AOA, abject loyalty to aging older members is a greater determinant of success than merit. Dissension means that you will be hounded out of your ability to eke out a living. They self-select people of their own ilk, ensuring their protégés are cast in their own deformed molds. And therefore, there is little room for women. The process of orthopedic training emasculates and castrates the trainees from their ability to look at orthopedics as a scientific discipline and not simply a trade. The third problem arising from the warm collusive embrace between the AOA and AHPRA is what it has done to our society. We have seen escalating costs for orthopedic services amidst stagnating quality. It has also increased the risk of corruption. When the chair of the medical board tells my lawyer, now a judge of the Supreme Court, before the board hearing, the AOA does not seem to like your orthopedic lady, we should all be worried.
Yes.
Why is a regulator in touch with a private body? So powerful and self-assured have these regulatory bodies become that they do not even need to pretend to be impartial.
No.
Can we fix these problems? I believe, yes. Australia is known globally as a leader in good governance. We broke the duopoly of the airlines. We broke the triopoly of the banks. We broke the oligopoly of the communication companies. We respect women. We encourage competition. We believe in fair play. Against this background, the medical establishment sits like an abscess, sullying the fair face of our polity. I would like to offer 4 possible solutions for your consideration. The first is to extricate AHPRA from the stranglehold of the colleges.
Yeah.
If we are able to get legislation into place that explicitly forbids any current or past office bearers of the specialist colleges from sitting on the AHPRA board, that would give AHPRA a greater degree of independence. AHPRA board should be made up of a majority of non-medical people, and medical personnel, when required, should be drawn from the ranks of career administrators like directors of medical services. Well, I'm offering suggestions, could be taken, not. Second, we need to break up the cartelisation through introducing competition. We trust our universities to train and produce competent undergraduate doctors. We also trust our universities to provide world-class training in many postgraduate areas such as engineering, finance, and rocket science. In a similar fashion, if postgraduate medical education and training was made a commercially viable proposition for our universities, they will provide the ideal bridge between supply and demand for medical services by training appropriate number of specialists for our needs. Third, we need to reward research and academic engagement. This can be done by weighting the remuneration for the item numbers by a measure of the academic and research output. For instance, if one holds a professorial chair at a university or a lectureship, the remuneration for the clinical work should be higher than if this were not the case. Such a system would create an impetus towards academic engagement. And finally, we need a Royal Commission to look into the findings of the EAG report and an ICAC inquiry to see if our national regulator, AHPRA, is colluding with the bodies it is meant to be regulating. Yes. The Catholic Church, of which I am a practicing member, was phlegmatic in its response to the misdemeanors of the clergy. However, once the Royal Commission came into being, the Church has been much more vigorous in its response. The contrived contrition being shown by the Royal Colleges today through its prolific brochures and posters is simply a smokescreen, similar to the early efforts of the Catholic Church, which allowed its most senior and egregious members or offenders to make their getaway. We should not allow this to happen. In conclusion, we need to do nothing new or significant to fix this problem. We simply need to encourage bodies like the AOA and their minions from AHPRA to abandon their medieval mindset and join mainstream modern Australia. To my orthopaedic colleagues, I would like to warmly say, we are waiting for you. And to all of you, thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this effort.